The night it began was not marked by lightning, thunder, or the beating drums of some great disaster. It began in silence, a silence so complete it pressed against the bones, as if the air itself had forgotten how to breathe. Samuel Gray had been walking the shoreline of a forgotten coast, chasing the last light of day, when the horizon fractured. At first he thought it was the fatigue of his eyes, lines of gold bending across the sky, stars appearing far too early. But then he saw the ocean split like glass, reflecting not the world above but another, layered beneath. And in that watery reflection, he saw himself. Not as he was, but as he might one day be, older, worn, haunted. He fell to his knees, heart pounding, staring into the mirror sea. That was the first time Samuel felt the weight of the artifact in his pocket shift. It had been given to him hours earlier by a stranger cloaked in ash-colored robes, a man who whispered, "Do not ask what it is. Ask instead what it costs." Samuel had not asked. He had only taken it, a small sphere of silver threads wound so tightly it seemed alive. Now the sphere pulsed with warmth, matching the strange rhythm of the fractured horizon. When the device first activated, it was not by his choice. His hand tightened and the world folded in on itself, colors bleeding, sounds smearing into a single long note. When it ended, Samuel was standing in the middle of a street that no longer existed. Cobblestones under his feet, horses clattering past, the scent of coal and ink thick in the air. He stumbled, disoriented, before realizing where, or rather when, he had landed. London, 1895. The newspapers in a boy's arms shouted headlines Samuel had read in history books, except the boy looked up at him, eyes glinting, and whispered, "You don't belong here." It was the beginning of a spiral Samuel could not escape. Each time he touched the artifact, it hurled him into another moment, another fracture of time. He saw empires rise and fall in minutes. He stood in the middle of burning fields where soldiers screamed in languages not yet invented. He saw cities floating in the sky, luminous with technology his century could never imagine. But the most terrifying moments were not the futures or the pasts. It was the presence of others. They were there in every fractured moment, watching. Figures cloaked in ash-gray robes, their eyes hollow, their voices always whispering the same phrase, "We are the debt." Samuel learned quickly that the artifact was not simply a gift, it was a chain. Every time he used it, the threads inside tightened and the cloaked figures stepped closer. Yet he could not stop. How could anyone, when each fracture revealed the truth, that time itself was unraveling, pulled apart by choices never meant to coexist? He saw versions of himself who had lived and died 1,000 ways. In one, he was a scholar. In another, a murderer. In yet another, a forgotten name carved into a broken gravestone. Each glimpse left him trembling, unable to tell where he ended and they began. The worst came one night when he was thrown into the year 2124. The sky was torn open, cities crumbling into dust, and the remnants of humanity huddled in ruins. Great machines groaned above them, half alive, half dead, their circuits pulsing like veins. Samuel staggered through the rubble, and there, etched into the wall of a crumbling cathedral, were words that made his breath stop. "Samuel Gray will end us." His name, his curse, his destiny. He wanted to destroy the artifact. He tried, threw it into fire, hurled it into the sea, smashed it with iron. Each time it returned to his hand, threads unbroken, pulsing with life. And each time the whispers grew louder. The ash-robed figures followed, surrounding him, speaking with one voice. Every fracture you create, every path you walk, feeds the collapse. You are the fulcrum. You must choose, break the chain or bind the world. Samuel raged against them. He screamed into the void of fractured skies, demanded answers, begged for release. But the only response was silence, and in that silence he began to understand. The artifact was not showing him the past or the future. It was showing him possibility. Infinite strands, infinite outcomes, each one demanding a cost. And the more he tried to change, to save, to control, the more the strands frayed, until nothing was left but collapse. In his final journey, Samuel found himself standing in a field of stars, not above, not below, but around him. The sphere dissolved into threads, wrapping his body, pulling him into the loom of time itself. He saw everything, every life, every death, every joy and sorrow, woven together into a single tapestry. And he realized the truth. It was never about rewriting. It was about holding, preserving, carrying the unbearable weight of all that was and all that would be. The choice was not to change the story, but to accept it, and in that acceptance, heal the fractures. With tears streaming down his face, Samuel whispered a single word: enough. The threads tightened, then loosened, dissolving into light. The cloaked figures bowed their heads and vanished, their debt finally paid. The horizon sealed itself, the ocean stilled, and dawn rose unbroken. Samuel stood alone, no artifact in his hand, no fractures at his feet, only the steady, unyielding march of time. Years later, his journals were found in the ruins of that same observatory where it had all begun. Pages filled not with regrets or rewrites, but with stories. Stories of love, loss, triumph, and sorrow. Stories preserved exactly as they were, no more, no less. And those who read them wept, not for what could have been, but for the fragile beauty of what was. Because in the end, Samuel had learned the lesson few ever do, that the greatest power is not in changing the past or controlling the future, but in bearing witness and still choosing to hope.